The darkness of early morning, June 6, 1944. Above Normandy, the clouds glowed red with fire and steel. C-47s rumbled like thunderheads beating toward enemy soil. Private Jake McNiece sat strapped into his seat, the jumpmaster's voice drowning beneath engines and nerves. His mission: parachute into the darkness behind German lines, target the bridges spanning the Douve River, and delay the enemy's reinforcements against the landings at Utah and Omaha beaches. A suicide mission. Everyone knows it. Then the aircraft lurches. Flak. Anti-aircraft fire erupting all around them. The plane is hit. They're going down early, off target, scattered. As the green light flicked on, he stepped into the open ramp and leapt into night, into chaos, into history. The prop blast catches him, spins him, tracers arc through the darkness. He counts. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. His parachute opens with a violent jerk. Below him, muzzle flashes light up the French countryside like fireflies. Germans, shooting at paratroopers, dangling helplessly in the air. McNiece can hear men screaming, can hear the wet thump of bullets hitting bodies, can hear parachutes ripping. He's falling too fast. The ground rushes up, impact, hard, his knees buckle. He rolls, comes up fighting, struggling with his harness around him, chaos. Paratroopers scattered across miles of Norman farmland. Some landing in trees, some landing in flooded marshes, drowning under the weight of their equipment. Some landing directly into German positions, dead before they hit the ground. McNiece is alone, completely alone in enemy territory. For 2 hours, Jake McNiece fights alone in the hedgerows of Normandy. These aren't the neat borders Americans imagine. These are walls, ancient earthen barriers, 3 to 12 feet high, topped with thick vegetation, perfect defensive positions. The Germans know it. They're waiting in the shadows. McNiece moves carefully, listening. A shadow shifts in the next hedgerow. He freezes, his finger tightens on his trigger. Movement. He fires. The shadow drops, but now they know where he is. Machine gun fire rips through the darkness, tearing branches above his head. He rolls, comes up running, crashes through a gap in the hedgerow. Hand-to-hand combat in the darkness. A German soldier appears from nowhere. No time to aim. McNiece brings up his rifle like a club. The German goes down. McNiece keeps moving, has to find his men, has to complete the mission. 2 bridges to destroy, 1 to secure. 20 men started this mission. How many are left? Dawn breaks over Normandy. McNiece has found 2 men. Just 2. Somewhere in this chaos are the other 17 members of the Filthy 13. Dead, wounded, captured, scattered. It doesn't matter. They have a mission. The bridges over the Douve River. This shallow river, 49 miles long, snaking through the Cottontan Peninsula. German reinforcements will use these bridges to rush troops toward Utah Beach, where American forces are landing right now. McNiece and his 2 remaining men move toward their objective. They carry demolition charges, timers, det cord, everything they need to blow bridges, everything they trained for. But between them and those bridges are hundreds of German soldiers. McNiece doesn't care. He's been preparing for this moment his entire life. Born May 24th, 1919, in Maysville, Oklahoma, the 9th of 10 children. Part Choctaw, part Irish, all fighter. The Depression couldn't break him. The Dust Bowl couldn't break him. The United States Army certainly couldn't break him. The family fled Oklahoma in 1931. Jake was 12 years old when the Dust Bowl turned their world into a wasteland of choking dust and dead crops. They moved to Ponca City, a town that promised work and a better future. Jake learned fast what it meant to survive in America during the Depression. You fought for everything, every meal, every opportunity. At Ponca City High School, he channeled that fighting spirit into football. He became team captain after 3 years lettering, and his classmates elected him senior class president in 1939. But there was no future in football, no future in anything during those years. After graduation, Jake took whatever work he could find, road construction, swinging a pickaxe under the Oklahoma sun, 12-hour days that left his hands bleeding and his back screaming. Then came the job that changed everything. The Pine Bluff Arsenal. Explosives. Jake discovered he had a gift, an instinct for blast patterns, timing, and the delicate art of destruction, how to bring down a building with surgical precision, where to place charges for maximum effect. Later, working as a firefighter, he used those same skills to demolish condemned structures safely. But in 1942, Jake had a problem. A bar fight, the kind that could mean serious jail time. As America edged closer to war in 1942, Jake saw an opportunity. He'd heard that soldiers couldn't be prosecuted for civilian crimes. Whether true or not, Jake believed it. On September 1st, 1942, Jake McNiece walked into a recruitment office and volunteered. But he didn't want just any assignment. He wanted the most dangerous, the most elite unit the Army had to offer. He wanted to be a paratrooper. The recruiter looked at this young man from Oklahoma with skepticism. Jake claimed he was 23 years old. The sergeant didn't believe him. Jake's weathered face, his scarred neck and shoulders, suggested a much harder life. But the Army needed men. The sergeant signed the papers. Camp Taucoa, Georgia. Colonel Sink's Muscle College. This is where the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment was born. This is where Jake McNiece would become a paratrooper. From his first day, Jake proved to be everything his superiors feared and needed. His physical capabilities were undeniable. He completed the demolition course faster than any recruit before him. When complimented on his performance, Jake's response was pure defiance. "If you think that's impressive, you should see what I can do if I get butter every once in a while." He'd just fought a staff sergeant over butter rations. This was the pattern that would define his entire military career. Brilliant in the field, impossible in garrison. Jake refused to salute unless saluted first. He ignored rank when it suited him. He skipped formations, particularly the evening retreat ceremony. When confronted about missing retreat, Jake had a prepared answer. "I'm a conscientious objector to retreat," he told his sergeant. "I'm a nature worshiper. My mother is Choctaw Indian. She worships nature. My father is Irish Catholic, but I adopted her religion. We only pay tribute to natural things, the sun, moon, stars. It would destroy me spiritually to listen to man-made music and salute a man-made flag." The sergeant knew he was lying. Everyone knew he was lying. But Jake McNiece had found a loophole in Army regulations, and he exploited it brilliantly. His commanding officers faced an impossible dilemma. McNiece was a disciplinary nightmare who spent as much time in the stockade as in training. Yet in every practical skill, he excelled. They couldn't get rid of him, and they couldn't control him. In England, 1943, Jake McNiece found his people, the troublemakers, the ones no other sergeant could handle. They started dumping their problem soldiers into McNiece's demolition section. Men with nicknames that told their stories. Jack Hawkeye Woomer, George Gugu, Radeka, Robert Ragsman Cone, Roland Frenchy Baribeau, John Peepnuts Hale. These were the originals, the core, the men who would become legend. They lived in Nissen huts near a manor estate. Game roamed the neighboring property. Jake and his men used their military training for an unauthorized purpose, hunting. They poached deer, rabbits, whatever they could find. But cooking required water, and water was rationed. So they made a choice. They would use their water ration for cooking instead of bathing. They washed once a week. Maybe. Their uniforms went uncleaned. The name came from a war correspondent, Tom Hogue of Stars and Stripes. The Filthy 13. It stuck immediately. The number 13 referred to a standard demolition section. 13 enlisted men. But the Filthy 13 was never about numbers. It was about attitude. They went AWOL every weekend they wanted. They stole jeeps. They stole trains. They blew up barracks. They blew down trees. They stole the colonel's whiskey. Jack Agnew would later say, "We weren't murderers or anything. We just didn't do everything we were supposed to do in some ways, and did a whole lot more than they wanted us to do in other ways. We were always in trouble." But their officers looked the other way. The Filthy 13 were the best at what they did. Demolition, sabotage. When lives depended on destroying enemy infrastructure behind enemy lines, you called the Filthy 13. June 5th, 1944, the night before D-Day, airfield in England. C-47 transport planes lined up in the darkness, their fuselages marked with fresh invasion stripes, alternating black and white bands painted just hours before. The 440th Troop Carrier Group would carry the Filthy 13 into history. 20 men prepared to jump. Their mission, secure or destroy the bridges over the Douve River. A shallow river 49 miles long, running through the Cotentin Peninsula of Normandy. These bridges were critical. German reinforcements would use them to rush troops toward the beaches where Allied forces would land at dawn. The Filthy 13 had to stop that. As twilight faded, Jake McNiece did something that would become iconic. He took his military-issue razor and shaved his head into a mohawk. His men watched. Then they did the same. McNiece claimed it honored his Choctaw heritage. Later, he admitted the practical reason, avoiding lice that infested battlefields strewn with corpses. But there was a psychological element too, his son would later explain. If they're scared of us as crazy paratroopers, well, this just makes us look crazier. They needed something else. Paint. Not ceremonial paint. They used what was available, the still wet paint from their aircraft's invasion stripes. Black and white streaks across their faces. War paint. Army photographers captured the moment Private Clarence Ware applying paint to Private Charles Plata's face. Jake McNiece with his mohawk. Paint-streaked face, eyes focused on the mission ahead. These images would electrify America. They would inspire a novel, then a film. The Dirty Dozen. But that came later. On this night, the Filthy 13 were simply preparing to die. As darkness falls, the men board their aircraft. Equipment checks. Parachute checks. Demolition charges secured. Each man carries explosive charges, detonators, weapons, ammunition, over 100 pounds of gear. After midnight, the engines roar to life. The C-47 lifts off, crosses the English Channel. Jake stands at the door watching. Then the anti-aircraft fire starts. Their plane is hit. They're going down early, off target. No choice. Green light, go. And Jake McNiece jumps into the darkness, into history, into Normandy. Now, dawn of June 6th. McNiece has found 2 of his men. Just 2. They approach the first bridge. Germans everywhere, hundreds of them. McNiece doesn't hesitate. They engage close-quarters combat in the hedgerows, the kind of fighting where you see your enemy's face, where a moment's hesitation means death. They fight through, reach the bridge. McNiece places the charges with practiced precision. Everything he learned at Pine Bluff Arsenal. Timer set, They fall back. The explosion tears through the dawn. First bridge down, German reinforcements can't use it now. Second bridge, same process. Fight through German positions, place charges, blow the bridge. 2 down, 1 more objective. The third bridge, not destroy it, secure it. Wire it for demolition so Allied forces can blow it if needed. By the time they reach it, McNiece looks around. Started with 20 men, now there are 2. Just 2. Lieutenant Charles Mellon, their commanding officer, is dead, killed in the jump. Robert Cohn, captured. Clarence Ware, wounded. James Green, wounded, half the unit gone. But the mission is complete. 3 bridges neutralized, German reinforcements delayed. McNiece and his remaining men hold their position, fighting off German counterattacks, waiting for American forces to break through from the beaches. The wait lasts days. 5 days of continuous combat near the village of Brevens, surrounded by Germans, cut off from supplies, no relief. Just Jake McNiece and the handful of survivors, holding their ground. When they finally link up with Allied forces, senior command is shocked. They'd written off the Filthy 13 as casualties, assumed the mission had failed, but McNiece had succeeded. The cost was devastating, but they had done what they were sent to do. Later, Air Force Command would bomb the bridges anyway. They didn't trust the mission report, didn't believe paratroopers could have accomplished it. The irony burned. But McNiece had more fighting ahead. He spent over 30 days behind enemy lines after D-Day. 30 days of guerrilla warfare, ambushes, raids, and survival. The casualty rate for McNiece's unit was 70%. 70%. Far worse than the 50% they'd been told to expect. But Jake McNiece survived. He always survived, Tom Hogue wrote in Stars and Stripes. No one knows yet just what happened to the Filthy 13. But all agree on one thing. Pity the poor Nazi who encounters them. Replacements arrive to fill the gaps. New faces in the Filthy 13. The unit continued through northern France. September 17th, 1944. Operation Market Garden. The Allied plan to invade Nazi-occupied Netherlands. The 101st Airborne Division would seize key bridges. The Filthy 13 jumped into Eindhoven. Their mission, defend 3 bridges over the Douve River. The operation was ambitious, complex, troubled. German forces responded with devastating effectiveness. German bombing of Eindhoven killed or wounded half of the demolitions platoon. Jake McNiece was promoted to demolition platoon sergeant. Not because of his discipline, because everyone else was dead. He led what remained through the campaign. 78 days in Holland securing command posts, protecting wire-laying details, sometimes just fighting as infantry when units were under strength. After Market Garden, McNiece went AWOL. Paris. Beautiful, liberated Paris. He had a 72-hour pass. He overstayed by considerably more than that. When he finally returned to Mourmelon, France, his superiors had made a decision. They needed a permanent solution to Jake McNiece. Frank Shorty Milan delivered the offer. Volunteer for Pathfinder training. Keep your rank. Leave with a clean record. Pathfinders were elite paratroopers who jumped ahead of main forces, set up navigation beacons, guide aircraft to drop zones, coordinate resupply operations. Dangerous work. But McNiece thought he'd finally caught a break. Train in England, sit out the rest of the war. He volunteered immediately. Half the surviving Filthy 13 followed him. They all thought the same thing. The war would end without them making another combat jump. December the 1944 proved them spectacularly wrong. The Battle of the Bulge. 30 German divisions smash into American forces in the Ardennes forest. The 101st Airborne Division rushes to defend Bastogne, Belgium. German forces encircle them completely. The trapped Americans are desperate. Freezing temperatures, snow, near zero visibility, running out of ammunition, running out of medical supplies, running out of food. They need resupply, but aircraft can't find them through the weather. Then someone has an idea. Pathfinders. Drop Pathfinders into Bastogne. Set up navigation beacons. The CRN-4 Eureka system can guide supply aircraft even in terrible weather. Jake McNiece and 19 other Pathfinders are called. The mission briefing is rushed. Haphazard maps lack detail. Intelligence is minimal. Anticipated casualties 80 to 90%. 80 to 90%? McNiece listens to this and says simply, "I need a miracle." December 23rd, 1944, 2:52 p.m. The Pathfinder's aircraft takes off. 3 minutes later, Captain Brown returns to his office, learns the full scope of how suicidal the mission plan actually is. He's appalled, radios the pilot immediately. Turn around, they land, replan with better maps. But McNiece has serious doubts whether the pilots can drop them on target. They take off again. This time, they jump. Into Bastogne, into a town surrounded by German forces, under constant artillery bombardment, under constant air attack. Somehow they land successfully. McNiece doesn't waste time. Immediately begins setting up navigation equipment. He chooses locations carefully. High points where the Eureka beacons will have maximum range. One spot, a small hill near the Masson family farmhouse. The beacons activate. Supply aircraft begin finding their target. Drop after drop, ammunition, medical supplies, food. 95% of drop supplies are recovered by the defenders, 95%. Supreme Allied Commander Dwight Eisenhower will later claim these resupply drops ensured victory at Bastogne. But the Pathfinders need shelter. They find a 3-story chateau already occupied by Team Snafu, an improvised group from the 28th Infantry Division caught in the retreat. The major in charge tells McNiece he has no room for Pathfinders. McNiece's patience, never abundant, evaporates. He points out his men can sleep in the basement, safer from artillery anyway. The major refuses again. McNiece tells him to call General McAuliffe. Tell him that Jake McNiece is here with his Pathfinders, requesting quarters, and that you don't have room for him. Me and my men are going to stay here in this house tonight. I guarantee you. The major backs down. The Pathfinders get their basement. They guide in supply drops day after day under fire, under siege, until aerial resupply is no longer necessary. Out of 20 Pathfinders, only one man is lost. Just one. A mission expecting 80 to 90% casualties loses 5%. Jake McNiece saved the 101st Airborne at Bastogne, February 13th, 1945. One final combat jump, near Prüm, Germany. Mission: resupply the cut-off 90th Infantry Division 4 combat jumps total. Normandy, Market Garden, Bastogne, Prüm. A rare feat for any American paratrooper. Throughout the war, McNiece's rank fluctuated constantly. Promoted for combat effectiveness, demoted for disciplinary problems. Promoted again, demoted again. Yet by war's end, he served as acting first sergeant for Headquarters Company, 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment. His natural leadership abilities undeniable. His military decorations tell the story. Bronze Star Medal with 3 oak leaf clusters, Combat Infantry Badge, Presidential Unit Citation for Normandy, Presidential Unit Citation for Holland, 2 Presidential Unit Citations for Bastogne, Purple Heart with oak leaf cluster, 4 bronze stars on his jump wings indicating 4 combat jumps. Numerous other awards. France would eventually award him the Legion of Honor, their highest award for valor. Though it came almost 70 years later, February 1946, Jake McNiece is kicked out of the military. One last fight with military police. The Army has finally had enough. He returns to civilian life, travels the United States with his father for 6 months, then settles in California for railroad and construction work. In 1949, he returns to Ponca City, Oklahoma, begins a career with the United States Postal Service that will last 28 and a half years. He meets Martha Beam Wonders. They marry in 1953, 2 sons and a daughter. They remain married until his death. For decades, Jake McNiece lives quietly. His neighbors know him as a mailman. Few know about the war, the mohawk, the war paint, the bridges over the Douve, the Pathfinder, jump into Bastogne, the 4 combat jumps, the Filthy 13. His past remains largely hidden until 1997. Historian Richard Kilblain from Ponca City begins recording Jake's oral history. The stories that emerge are extraordinary. Kilblain publishes The Filthy 13 in 2003. Suddenly, Jake McNiece is a celebrity. World War II enthusiasts recognize his name. He tours America and Europe, sharing his stories with younger generations. Military events invite him as guest of honor. He signs autographs, poses for photos, answers questions, always with that same defiant spirit that defined his military career. In 2012, France presents him with the Legion of Honor at the Oklahoma State Capitol, an honor almost 70 years overdue. But France remembers. France remembers the paratroopers who jumped into Normandy, who destroyed the bridges, who stopped German reinforcements who made D-Day possible. A memorial stands at Brevance, France, commissioned by Réal Desmarais, dedicated to the 3rd Battalion, 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment, to the Filthy 13, to Jake McNiece and the men who accomplished the impossible. Jack Agnew dies April 8th, 2010, age 88. Jake McNiece reflects on his own survival with characteristic humor. "I think I made it because God didn't have anywhere to put me." At that point in time, he was so busy, he was only putting people in one of 2 places, heaven or hell, and I think he knew I would have goofed up either one of them, so here I am. January 21st, 2013. Jake McNiece dies peacefully at his home in Ponca City, Oklahoma. He is 93 years old, the last surviving member of the original Filthy 13. The man who refused to salute, who spent as much time in the stockade as in training, who went AWOL whenever he felt like it, who stole jeeps and trains and Colonel's whiskey, who shaved his head into a mohawk and painted his face with invasion stripes, who jumped into Normandy with 20 men and completed the mission with 2, who jumped into Bastogne when casualties were expected to reach 90%, and lost only 1 man, who made 4 combat jumps when most paratroopers made none, who spent over 30 days behind enemy lines fighting Germans in the hedgerows of France, who saved the 101st Airborne with Pathfinder beacons at Bastogne. America's airborne anti-hero is gone, but his legend endures. The paratrooper who broke every rule except the one that mattered. Complete the mission. No matter the cost, no matter the odds, complete the mission. That was Jake McNasty McNiece, a troublemaker, a fighter, a survivor, a hero, and he would have hated being called that last one.